On a scorching Saturday, I was enjoying my pool, my earned paradise, when Karen showed up, trespassing, screaming racist insults, and demanding her stepsister swim. She called my music ghetto and labeled me a disruption. I stood my ground. She lied to 911, but I hit record. The cops came, saw the truth, and she lost. Not satisfied, she filed a bogus HOA complaint, again defeated by my evidence. Then, under cover of night, she poisoned my $9,000 pool. But I had cameras. I caught her red-handed, unleashed a lawsuit, hit her with criminal charges, and exposed her to the whole neighborhood. Her money, her home, her fake life, gone. The ultimate twist? I used her settlement to build a community park next to her old house. Her hate funded the joy she tried to destroy. In the scorching heat of a Saturday afternoon, I found myself lounging on my poolside, sipping lemonade and relishing in the tranquil sound of water cascading over tiles. The sun was high overhead, casting a warm glow across the glass surface that shimmered with a subtle sheen as if it were made of liquid diamonds. My pool had been perfect for weeks, with crystal-clear blue waters and comfortable loungers surrounding me. But something felt off today. As I glanced around, my gaze met Karen, an old college friend from high school. She was the one who introduced us to each other's families when we both moved into our first apartments together. Her hair had grown dark, her eyes sunken with years of neglect and abuse, and a thick layer of grime clung to her face as she screeched in anger and frustration. Karen appeared lost in thought, staring down at the pool tiles that lined its length. Suddenly, she spotted me lounging on another side of the water's edge and let out a guttural scream before darting towards my area. My heart raced as I realized what was happening. Karen had come to confront me about something incredibly personal. Karen. I called her name in an attempt to draw her attention back from the pool, but she only sneered at me with a cold, unyielding gaze and continued to shout out her racist slurs. "You're a disruption," she spat, brandishing insults that echoed through the air like sharp stones. I stood my ground, trying to maintain composure despite the mounting anger in Karen's voice. My heart pounded as I realized what had transpired. Karen's stepsister was swimming in the pool, and Karen accused her of being ghetto. The word struck me coldly. She had called us disruption simply because we were black. My mind raced with a flood of emotions, from shock to anger to betrayal. How could someone so entitled and privileged be so dismissive of people's contributions to society? It was as if they believed that their race determined everything about who belonged in the pool or where one lived. I felt my own rage building up inside me, but I knew better than to let it boil over into a violent outburst. Instead, I reached for my phone and dialed 911, hoping to capture Karen's actions on tape so that justice could be served. As the police arrived at our house, I watched in horror as they searched through the backyard, scrutinizing every detail of the pool area, including the steps where Karen had been accused. The officers were not intimidated by my sudden appearance and confronted her with a stack of evidence. Recordings from phone calls to 911, photographs of my sister's swimwear, and witness accounts that confirmed Karen's allegations. In an instant, Karen's face contorted in rage as she attempted to deny any wrongdoing, but was swiftly proven wrong. The officers showed her the footage of her screaming racial slurs and demanded that she apologize for calling me ghetto. Her eyes widened with disbelief as they watched her step out of line and onto my property. "I can't believe you," Karen spat, tears streaming down her face. "You're a disruption. You've caused chaos and destruction in our community." I stood there, frozen in horror but determined to protect the truth behind Karen's actions. As the police left our house, I made sure to document every step they took during their investigation and submitted a formal complaint against her, detailing both the racist slurs she had spoken and the evidence that proved my sister was innocent. The next day, news outlets around the world covered my lawsuit, highlighting the controversy surrounding Karen's actions and drawing attention to issues of racial injustice. The response from both sides of the community as swift, with some calling me a hero for standing up against Karen, while others questioned if it was fair to have someone who had been marginalized in school face criminal charges. As I sat in my home, reflecting on this experience, I couldn't help but wonder what other lives might be impacted by racist slurs and how we can work towards creating more inclusive communities. The community park that I planned to build next to Karen's old house seemed like the perfect solution, a space where people from all backgrounds could come together in peace, fostering understanding and mutual respect. But as I looked out onto my new project, I realized that it would not be easy to make this dream a reality. The cost of construction and land acquisition was high, and there were community concerns about the impact on Karen's life before she moved away. Moreover, building a park in such an isolated area would require collaboration with local authorities and infrastructure providers. Despite these challenges, I refused to let my fear or doubts deter me from pursuing this vision for justice. Instead, I set out to gather more information about the community and its needs, working closely with community leaders, government officials, and residents to ensure that the park was designed in a way that would benefit all members of our diverse neighborhood. Over time, we worked together to create a space that celebrated diversity, inclusivity, and creativity. The park offered a place for people from different backgrounds to come together, play games, exercise, learn new skills, or simply enjoy nature while fostering an atmosphere of respect and understanding. In the end, Karen's racist slurs had not been enough to prevent me from building this community park in her old house. Instead, they served as a catalyst for change, inspiring others to stand up against racism and discrimination and work towards creating a more equitable and inclusive society. My experience with Karen taught me that sometimes, even when we are targeted by the enemy or face seemingly insurmountable obstacles, it is possible to use our voices, courage, and resilience to triumph. It was a lesson that would stay with me for the rest of my life, reminding me that in times like these, it's essential to remain steadfast in our commitment to justice and strive towards building bridges rather than walls between different communities. In conclusion, on a scorching Saturday, I found myself enjoying my pool, my earned paradise, when Karen showed up, trespassing, screaming racist insults, and demanding her stepsister swim. But instead of allowing her words and actions define me, I chose to stand my ground, documenting the evidence against her, submitting a complaint to 911, and working towards creating a community park next to her old house that would celebrate diversity, inclusivity, and creativity. As Karen's racist slurs were not enough to prevent me from building this community park in her old house, they served as a catalyst for change, inspiring others to stand up against racism and discrimination and work towards creating a more equitable and inclusive society. The experience taught me that sometimes, even when we are targeted by the enemy or face seemingly insurmountable obstacles, it is possible to use our voices, courage, and resilience to triumph. It was a lesson that would stay with me for the rest of my life, reminding me that in times like these, it's essential to remain steadfast in our commitment to justice and strive towards building bridges rather than walls between different communities. Int. Pools and Parks Department's office. Day the sun beats down on the bustling city of New York, casting an oppressive heat that seems to radiate from every square inch of concrete and glass. In this office, a team of dedicated professionals works tirelessly towards creating a world where diversity is celebrated, inclusivity prevails, and creativity thrives. Dr. Maria Rodriguez, the Director of Parks and Recreation for Brooklyn Heights, sat at her desk surrounded by stacks of reports, proposals, and research papers. She had been appointed to this position after years in government service, having earned recognition as a trailblazer in community organizing and racial justice efforts. Her resolve was evident in the way she walked with purpose, always keeping an eye on her goal, building a diverse, equitable park system that would serve all Brooklynites regardless of their race or ethnicity. One day, while discussing a recent project about implementing a new greenway in Brooklyn's public spaces, Maria met Karen Thompson, a wealthy white woman with a passion for gardening and community involvement. Karen was known to be the queen bee behind several local initiatives aimed at promoting inclusivity and diversity within her neighborhood. As they chatted over coffee, she shared that she had noticed an increasing number of racist incidents in Brooklyn's parks lately. Karen's words resonated deeply within Maria, as she realized how easy it could be for white people to overlook the experiences faced by marginalized communities. She decided to confront Karen and document every instance of racism or discrimination she encountered during her stay at my pool, hoping that this would serve as a deterrent against future incidents. As Karen continued to demand changes in the park's design and amenities, Maria knew it was time for action. She gathered evidence from witnesses who had witnessed Karen's racist slurs towards individuals with diverse backgrounds, including Asian women, Black men, and LGBTQ+ people. These reports included screenshots of Facebook messages, the Bureau posts, emails exchanged between Karen and a white neighbor she claimed to be friends with, and witness accounts that documented her confrontations with park staff. In the days following these events, Maria submitted a complaint to the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation, DPR, about Karen's discriminatory behavior. She highlighted specific incidents where Karen had used racist language or exhibited offensive gestures towards members of marginalized communities in order to justify her actions and maintain control over the park. The DPR promptly reviewed the complaint and issued an official investigation, which began as a thorough audit of the park's facilities and amenities. As the investigation progressed, Maria found numerous instances of racism within Karen's organization and personal life, including discriminatory language towards Asian women at a local restaurant, racist slurs in her emails to friends and family members, and even allegations of sexual misconduct against LGBTQ+ individuals. The evidence gathered by Maria was overwhelming, as it demonstrated how easy it could be for white people to exploit their privilege and use racial biases to justify their actions. The investigation led the DPR to investigate Karen's personal life further, uncovering a pattern of behavior that exposed her financial dealings with developers, contractors, and local politicians. The findings were shocking, considering how easily she had managed to influence public policy at the expense of minority communities. In addition to the legal action taken by Maria against Karen, the investigation also revealed an interplay between race and class dynamics within Brooklyn's community. As Karen was a wealthy white woman with significant financial resources, she wielded her power as a city council member to push for changes in park amenities that catered primarily to white residents. The findings highlighted how systemic racism can exist within various institutions, including government agencies, private businesses, and even the halls of local politics. The Bureau, which had long been known for its unwavering commitment to racial harmony, was also scrutinized during the investigation, as they faced criticism over their handling of cases involving minorities. Maria's determination did not falter in this examination. She continued her work tirelessly, advocating for change and pushing for policy reforms that would address issues of racism and inequality within Brooklyn Heights Park System. She worked with local community leaders, advocacy groups, and elected officials to lobby for changes to discriminatory hiring practices, accessibility accommodations, and cultural programming. The campaign gained traction when Karen's racist actions were eventually exposed by a third-party investigation led by an independent organization called the National Center for Civil Rights, NCCR. The NCCR's findings echoed Maria's own allegations of racial bias within Karen's workplace. After reviewing the evidence collected by both investigations, they discovered that Karen had been repeatedly biased against minority employees and volunteers in her personal capacity. The revelations sent shockwaves through Brooklyn Heights community as residents became increasingly aware of the pervasive nature of racism and discrimination at their local park system. The NCCR released a public statement detailing the findings, accusing Karen of engaging in systematic racial harassment that violated federal Title VII laws protecting employees from employment discrimination based on race or color. The city's mayor, Michael Bloomberg, took action against Karen following the NCCR's report, ordering her to resign as council member and face legal consequences for her actions. The mayor also announced a comprehensive review of Brooklyn Heights Park System, with an emphasis on eliminating discriminatory policies and practices that disproportionately affected minority communities. As Maria continued her work in promoting diversity and inclusivity within Brooklyn Heights, she became known not only as the Director of Parks and Recreation, but also as a tireless advocate for social justice. Her relentless pursuit of change inspired others to speak out against racism and discrimination and join forces with her in creating a more equitable and inclusive society. The city's commitment to addressing systemic issues related to race and class dynamics led to significant improvements within Brooklyn Heights Park System, including the addition of new playgrounds, green spaces, and cultural programs that catered specifically to minority communities. The park system became a hub for community engagement and activism, serving as a space where residents could come together to celebrate diversity, learn from one another's experiences, and work towards creating positive change. The experience was not without its challenges, however. There were still instances of racism and discrimination within the community, but Maria remained steadfast in her commitment to fighting against these injustices. She continued working with local organizations and elected officials to address ongoing issues and ensure that Brooklyn Heights Park System reflected a more inclusive and equitable landscape. In the end, Karen's actions served as a wake-up call for many residents of Brooklyn Heights, highlighting the urgent need for systemic change within our communities and institutions alike. Maria's dedication to justice and her unwavering commitment to promoting diversity, inclusivity, and creativity helped transform Brooklyn Heights into a place where everyone could feel valued, respected, and empowered. As she stood on the sidelines of the park system's transformation, reflecting on her journey, Maria knew that it was not just about changing individual behaviors or policies. It was also about creating lasting change within communities. The lessons from this experience would stay with her for a lifetime, reminding her to always remain vigilant in protecting our shared spaces and working towards building bridges rather than walls between different communities. In conclusion, the story of Karen Thompson's intrusion into my pool, its aftermath, and the subsequent legal action taken by Dr. Maria Rodriguez serves as an inspiring reminder that racism and discrimination can be deeply ingrained within institutions and systems at any level. Despite facing significant opposition from a wealthy white woman who sought to control her park system, Maria refused to back down, documenting evidence against Karen's actions and submitting a complaint to the DPR. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that systemic issues of racism and class discrimination existed not just in Brooklyn Heights, but throughout various communities around the country. The NCCR's findings shed light on how Karen used her position of power as a council member to perpetuate discriminatory practices, and Maria's relentless pursuit of justice inspired others to speak out against these injustices. The city's commitment to addressing systemic issues related to race and class dynamics led to significant improvements within Brooklyn Heights Park system, including the addition of new playgrounds, green spaces, and cultural programs that catered specifically to minority communities. The park system became a hub for community engagement and activism, serving as a space where residents could come together to celebrate diversity, learn from one another's experiences, and work towards creating positive change. The experience was not without its challenges, but Maria remained steadfast in her commitment to fighting against these injustices. She continued working with local organizations and elected officials to address ongoing issues and ensure that Brooklyn Heights Park system reflected a more inclusive and equitable landscape. As she stood on the sidelines of the park system's transformation, reflecting on her journey, Maria knew that it was not just about changing individual behaviors or policies. It was also about creating lasting change within communities. The lessons from this experience would stay with her for a lifetime, reminding her to always remain vigilant in protecting our shared spaces and working towards building bridges rather than walls between different communities. In conclusion, Karen Thompson's intrusion into my pool, its aftermath, and the subsequent legal action taken by Dr. Maria Rodriguez serves as an inspiring reminder that racism and discrimination can be deeply ingrained within institutions and systems at any level. Despite facing significant opposition from a wealthy white woman who sought to control her park system, Maria refused to back down, documenting evidence against Karen's actions and submitting a complaint to the DPR. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that systemic issues of racism and class discrimination existed not global outline. 1. A scorching Saturday, I was lounging in my pool, a sanctuary where I could escape the heat and unwind after an intense work week. As Karen Thompson approached with her loud, racist insults and demands for her stepsister to swim, I couldn't help but feel like I had stumbled upon someone else's personal space. 2. The incident occurred at Brooklyn Heights Park System's picturesque outdoor recreation area, where Maria, a dedicated community member and the park system administrator, was overseeing a series of activities designed to promote inclusivity and diversity. As she observed Karen, her demeanor was not one that typically exhibited kindness or empathy towards others. Instead, she seemed fixated on making demands, belittling my sister's efforts at swimming in an effort to assert power over the space. 3. Maria knew that this encounter would not simply be about changing individual behaviors, but also about creating lasting change within communities. The lessons from her journey would stay with her for a lifetime, shaping her approach to managing public spaces and working towards bridging differences between different groups. 4. Karen Thompson's intrusion into my pool came as part of an ongoing effort by the Brooklyn Heights community to address systemic issues related to racial discrimination and class inequality within their park system. The city had been grappling with various challenges regarding access, equity, and inclusivity in its parks for years. In a bid to foster a more diverse and equitable environment, Mayor Thompson was seeking to reevaluate the role of public spaces as an agent of social change. 5. As Karen's behavior unfolded, Maria observed her confrontational nature, her use of racial slurs, and her aggressive tactics aimed at intimidating me into complying with her demands. Despite her attempts to intimidate me, I remained steadfast in my position, documenting evidence against Karen's actions and submitting a complaint to the DPR, Department for Parks and Recreation. 6. The investigation began when members of the community gathered around Maria and shared their concerns about Karen's behavior. They pointed out that she had previously threatened others with bodily harm if they didn't comply with her requests, further emphasizing the systemic nature of racism in Brooklyn Heights parks. 7. As the evidence mounted against Karen, it became clear that the Department for Parks and Recreation, DPR, was taking action to address this issue. The agency launched an investigation into Karen's conduct, which involved interviewing witnesses, reviewing surveillance footage, and examining park policies and procedures. 8. As the investigation progressed, Maria began working with a team of legal professionals to draft a formal complaint against Karen that outlined her actions and their impact on community cohesion. She highlighted several instances where Karen had violated Brooklyn Heights Parks laws, including the requirement for all individuals using public spaces to follow strict safety guidelines, as well as her aggressive behavior towards other park users. 9. The DPR's team of officials listened intently to Maria's complaint, carefully considering each piece of evidence and weighing their options on how to respond. They were aware that Karen's actions had sparked a significant debate within the Brooklyn Heights community about public spaces' role in promoting inclusivity and combating racial discrimination. 10. In response to Karen's demands for my sister to swim, Maria decided to escalate her case by filing an official complaint with the DPR. This move was not only prompted by personal concerns, but also fueled by a desire to hold Karen accountable and ensure that she met the community's expectations regarding park regulations. 11. The investigation began to unfold in earnest as members of the local media descended on Brooklyn Heights, scrutinizing the case for evidence of bias or discrimination. The press coverage painted an image of Maria as a confrontational figure who was solely focused on protecting her sister from Karen's threats and intimidation. As such, public opinion grew against Karen and increased pressure to take action. 12. When it became clear that the DPR needed to respond not only to Karen's demands, but also to address concerns about racial inequality within the Brooklyn Heights Park system more broadly, Mayor Thompson established a task force of community leaders, legal experts, and other stakeholders to investigate Karen's actions in conjunction with the Department for Parks and Recreation. 13. The task force quickly assembled a team of professionals who would work closely together to gather evidence, analyze data, and develop recommendations for how to address these issues effectively. They also worked on establishing guidelines for park policies that prioritized inclusivity and equity, aimed at ensuring that all individuals had equal access to public spaces. 14. With the task force's findings in hand, Karen Thompson was faced with a series of challenges as she navigated the legal process and tried to distance herself from her actions. She initially sought out an attorney who would help defend her case, but Maria quickly intervened, arguing that the DPR had already launched its investigation and should not be involved. 15. As tensions mounted between Karen and the task force's members, Mayor Thompson realized that he needed a more collaborative approach to address this issue. He reached out to community leaders such as neighborhood associations, community organizations, and local activists to gather their support in shaping policy changes that would ensure Brooklyn Heights parks remained welcoming and inclusive for all residents. 16. In collaboration with these stakeholders, the task force developed an action plan aimed at addressing Karen's actions while also promoting social justice within the park system. The plan involved Reviewing current policies related to access and equity in the park system. Conducting a comprehensive review of historical data on racial discrimination and class inequality in Brooklyn Heights Parks. Developing new guidelines for managing public spaces that prioritize inclusivity, diversity, and safety measures. Establishing clear consequences for individuals who violate these guidelines. Engaging with Karen Thompson to address her concerns about the park system's role in promoting racism and discrimination. 17. As the task force worked together to develop this action plan, Mayor Thompson also reached out to key stakeholders within the Brooklyn Heights community, seeking their input on how best to ensure that the park system remained a welcoming space for all residents, regardless of their race or background. 18. Through discussions with residents, community leaders, and legal experts, the task force was able to gather valuable insights into Karen's actions, her motivations, and the broader context in which they occurred. This information helped inform the development of the action plan, ensuring that it not only addressed the immediate issue, but also took into account the long-term impacts on Brooklyn Heights community cohesion. 19. The task force presented their recommendations to Mayor Thompson during a public meeting, outlining how steps could be taken to address Karen's actions while promoting social justice and inclusivity within the park system. These proposals included establishing clear policies that prohibit discriminatory behavior towards individuals based on race or ethnicity, providing education resources for staff and volunteers to understand the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in managing public spaces, implementing regular monitoring and audits of park systems to ensure compliance with established guidelines, encouraging community engagement through outreach programs that promote dialogue and understanding between diverse groups, working closely with local schools and organizations to integrate cultural events into the park system's programming. 20. The task force met with Karen Thompson, seeking her input on how best to address the concerns she had about the park system's role in promoting racism and discrimination. Through open and honest discussions, both parties were able to identify key areas for improvement within the park system, including enhancing educational programs that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, implementing more inclusive access practices for individuals with disabilities or those who may face barriers accessing public spaces, establishing clearer guidelines for behavior that does not comply with park rules to discourage discriminatory actions, addressing the root causes of racial inequality within Brooklyn Heights by addressing systemic issues such as poverty, lack of job opportunities, and housing instability. 21. Karen Thompson was encouraged to take action on her concerns about the park system's role in promoting racism and discrimination. She recognized that it was not just a matter of individual actions, but also required collective effort and commitment from various stakeholders within the community. 22. Recognizing the importance of addressing these issues, Mayor Thompson appointed Dr. Maria Rodriguez as an official liaison to work closely with Karen on this matter. Dr. Rodriguez is a dedicated advocate for equity and social justice, having previously worked at prominent universities across the United States where she focused on promoting diversity and inclusivity in various fields. 23. With her background and expertise in racial relations and community empowerment, Maria was well suited to lead this collaboration between Karen and the task force. She served as a trusted advisor, providing guidance and support throughout the process of developing an action plan aimed at improving the park system's policies and practices. 24. Dr. Rodriguez worked closely with community members, including park users, staff, and local organizations, to gather feedback on the recommendations for addressing Karen's actions while promoting social justice within the Brooklyn Heights Park system. She also engaged in discussions with Mayor Thompson to ensure that these proposals aligned not only with his goals, but also resonated with the broader community. 25. Based on their findings and input from various stakeholders, Dr. Rodriguez developed a comprehensive action plan for improving the park system's policies and practices. The plan included developing new guidelines that explicitly prohibit discriminatory behavior towards individuals based on race or ethnicity, conducting regular global outline. On a scorching Saturday, I was lounging in the serene pool of my beloved Brooklyn Heights Park, my escape from the city's hustle and bustle. The sun beat down on my tanned skin as I relished in the tranquility of the water while indulging in my favorite pastime, swimming. As I continued to float under the warm waters, a sudden noise resonated in the distance, catching my attention. A woman, her eyes fixed on me with an accusatory tone and menacing glances, approached. Her face contorted with anger as she shouted into the air, "Why are you here? You're not welcome. This park is for everyone." Despite her confrontational demeanor, I remained calm and composed. My heart raced at the realization that this woman was Karen, a local resident who had been causing chaos in our community by engaging in racial slurs and defaming people of color. What began as an innocent conversation quickly turned into a heated debate between Karen and myself about racism and its impact on society. As we delved deeper into these issues, I discovered that Karen's actions were not just isolated incidents, but rather part of a larger pattern of discrimination within our community. Over the past few years, there had been a growing awareness among residents about racial inequality and biases in various aspects of life. The Brooklyn Heights Park system was no exception to this trend. In previous decades, the authorities had made efforts to implement policies aimed at promoting diversity and inclusivity, but often fell short in addressing systemic issues that perpetuated racism. Karen's case was emblematic of these failures. She had previously worked as a professor at prominent universities across the United States where her focus was on advancing racial relations and community empowerment. With her background and expertise, Maria knew how to effectively engage communities like ours and drive meaningful change. Maria served as an advisor to Dr. Rodriguez, a local park system administrator who led the task force working towards implementing the proposed action plan aimed at improving the policies and practices in Brooklyn Heights. The team was comprised of experts from various fields, including racial justice advocates, community organizers, park staff members, and city officials. Dr. Rodriguez's primary responsibility was to gather feedback on Karen's actions while promoting social justice within the park system. She engaged in discussions with community members, including park users, staff, and local organizations, to understand their perspectives and concerns about discriminatory behavior towards individuals based on race or ethnicity. One of the key objectives of the task force's work was to develop new guidelines that explicitly prohibited discriminatory behavior against people of color. These guidelines would serve as a framework for all employees and volunteers in the park system to adhere to when interacting with park users from diverse backgrounds. Dr. Rodriguez started by holding public meetings where members of the community could share their experiences and suggestions on how best to address Karen's actions while promoting social justice within the park system. She also conducted individual interviews with key stakeholders, including park staff, to gather detailed feedback on various aspects of the policy changes that would be implemented. One significant aspect of Dr. Rodriguez's approach was the inclusion of a clear racial equity statement in all policies and procedures related to the Brooklyn Heights Park system. This document outlined the principles and values underpinning the organization's commitment to promoting diversity, inclusivity, and social justice. The statement emphasized the importance of treating everyone with respect and dignity regardless of their race or ethnicity, fostering an environment where individuals feel valued, protected, and celebrated. In addition to developing new guidelines and statements, Dr. Rodriguez also worked on enhancing existing policies and procedures that already aimed at promoting diversity in various aspects of the park system. This included implementing anti-discrimination training for employees and volunteers, revising hiring practices to attract more diverse candidates, and streamlining processes to ensure equitable access to resources. Another crucial aspect of the task force's work was the creation of a task force dedicated to monitoring and enforcing these policies and procedures effectively. The group would consist of representatives from various departments within the park system, including parks administration, public safety, community service, and education, who would be responsible for ensuring that all employees and volunteers adhered to these guidelines. To address Karen's demands, Dr. Rodriguez sought guidance from Mayor Thompson, whose vision was rooted in promoting social justice and inclusivity throughout Brooklyn Heights. She collaborated with the mayor to develop a comprehensive action plan aimed at improving the park system's policies and practices, which included 1. Conducting regular audits of all facilities, including playgrounds, restrooms, and picnic areas, to identify any instances of discrimination based on race or ethnicity. 2. Implementing new safety measures, such as increasing security personnel in high-traffic areas, conducting background checks for potential hires, and providing educational materials about the importance of diversity and inclusivity. 3. Strengthening partnerships with local community organizations, schools, and businesses to ensure that resources are distributed equitably among residents from diverse backgrounds. 4. Developing a system for addressing complaints and reports of discrimination within the park system by including dedicated reporting channels, trained personnel, and clear processes for investigating claims. By combining these efforts, Dr. Rodriguez hoped to create a comprehensive approach aimed at addressing Karen's actions while promoting social justice in Brooklyn Heights. This plan would not only address her immediate concerns, but also help establish long-term change that would benefit the entire community. As I sat by the pool on Saturday afternoon, reflecting on Dr. Rodriguez's work and Mayor Thompson's vision for the park system, my heart filled with hope. The fact that we had taken concrete steps towards promoting diversity, inclusivity, and social justice in Brooklyn Heights was a testament to our collective efforts to create a more equitable and inclusive community. As I swam beneath the warm waters, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the opportunity to be part of this groundbreaking initiative. My passion for fostering communities that celebrate differences led me to take action when others were not. And today's outcome was an inspiring reminder that change can happen when we work together towards a common goal. As I continued my swim, my mind drifted back to Karen's confrontational rant about the park system's policies and practices. Her words echoed in my thoughts as I reflected on the challenges faced by our community during this time of racial division. However, with Dr. Rodriguez's leadership and Mayor Thompson's vision at our side, we were confident that we could overcome these obstacles and create a more inclusive space for all residents. As the sun began to set over Brooklyn Heights Park, casting long shadows across the lush greenery around us, I couldn't help but feel grateful for this chance encounter with Karen and Dr. Rodriguez. Their efforts not only brought about tangible changes in our community, but also inspired me to continue my own commitment towards promoting diversity, inclusivity, and social justice. As the sky turned a beautiful shade of pink, signaling the end of another day at the pool, I knew that the work we had done would pave the way for a brighter future for all residents. The Brooklyn Heights Park system was no longer just about a single individual's actions or desires. It was an essential part of our community's collective journey towards creating a more equitable and inclusive world. The end. On a scorching Saturday afternoon, I was lounging in my luxurious pool, my sanctuary of peace and tranquility, when Karen arrived, her attire mismatched with an array of tattered scarves and torn jeans. The sound of her angry rant echoed throughout the neighborhood as she claimed to be defending her stepsister's right to swim against a group of predominantly white swimmers who had accused them of violating park rules. I couldn't help but feel intrigued by Karen's unwavering dedication to social justice and equality, despite being born into one of America's most prominent black families. She was not the typical stereotype of an African-American woman raised in privilege or with a privileged upbringing. Instead, she held a deep sense of empathy for her community, especially those who had been impacted by systemic racism. As Karen continued to berate the white swimmers and demand their stepsister be removed from the pool, I couldn't help but reflect on the challenges faced by our predominantly black neighborhood during this time of racial division. The tension between people from different backgrounds was palpable, with tensions escalating as they debated the merits of allowing Karen's sister to swim in a park where she had been accused of breaking rules. Dr. Rodriguez, a prominent community leader and psychologist, stood at my side, his voice steady and measured but firm. "Karen," he said, addressing her directly, "I understand your feelings and concerns about your stepsister swimming in the pool. However, it's essential to remember that these actions are not isolated incidents. They represent a larger pattern of systemic discrimination against black people." Dr. Rodriguez's words resonated with me as I couldn't help but feel disheartened by Karen's anger towards those who had accused her sister of breaking rules. She was right. This wasn't just about the pool incident. It represented a broader issue that permeated our community. The white swimmers were simply exercising their rights to swim in public spaces without considering the impact on black people. As Karen continued to argue with Dr. Rodriguez and Mayor Thompson, I couldn't help but feel inspired by their collective efforts towards creating a more inclusive space for all residents. They understood that change was necessary, not just for individual acts of racism, but also for addressing systemic issues that perpetuate discrimination against marginalized communities. Dr. Rodriguez's words led me to consider the importance of education and awareness in combating these injustices. He explained how we needed to understand the root causes of racial inequality and work towards dismantling structures that uphold it. We cannot simply address individual acts, such as those involving a swimmer, without addressing broader societal issues, he said. Mayor Thompson's vision echoed Dr. Rodriguez's message by emphasizing the need for community-wide efforts to create an inclusive environment where everyone feels valued and respected regardless of their race or background. He highlighted the importance of creating spaces that encourage open dialogue, respect, and understanding between people from different walks of life, particularly those who have historically been marginalized. As Karen continued her tirade against the white swimmers while Dr. Rodriguez listened intently, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. Their efforts were not just about individual actions. They represented collective action towards creating meaningful change in our community. We need to create spaces where people from diverse backgrounds can come together and build bridges, said Mayor Thompson, his voice filled with determination. We cannot allow discrimination and prejudice to define who we are as a community. Dr. Rodriguez nodded in agreement, adding that the first step was understanding and acknowledging the experiences of marginalized communities. He encouraged Karen to share her own story and how she had been impacted by racism, highlighting the need for empathy and compassion towards those who have faced similar challenges. As Dr. Rodriguez continued his speech, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in my community's commitment to promoting diversity, inclusivity, and social justice. The tension between Karen and the white swimmers was not an isolated incident. It represented a broader issue that needed addressing at every level, from individual acts to systemic changes. Karen finally accepted Dr. Rodriguez's advice, promising to share her own experiences with her community members and work towards creating a more inclusive space for all residents. Mayor Thompson's vision of building bridges between people from different backgrounds was echoed by Karen as she pledged to help facilitate conversations about race, racism, and the importance of inclusivity in our community. As they left my pool, I couldn't help but feel grateful for this chance encounter with Karen and Dr. Rodriguez. Their efforts not only brought about tangible changes in our community, but also inspired me to continue my own commitment towards promoting diversity, inclusivity, and social justice. As the sun began to set over Brooklyn Heights Park, casting long shadows across the lush greenery around us, I knew that the work we had done would pave the way for a brighter future for all residents. The Brooklyn Heights Park system was no longer just about a single individual's actions or desires. It was an essential part of our community's collective journey towards creating a more equitable and inclusive world. The end. Global outline. On a scorching Saturday, I was enjoying my pool, my earned paradise, when Karen showed up. She had been wandering the park for hours, searching for anything that might spark an argument or conversation with someone from her community. As she approached me, her voice raised in anger and frustration, spewing racist slurs at a group of children playing on a nearby playground. "I can't believe you're here today," Karen growled as she confronted me. "I've been watching your pool for weeks now, trying to figure out why so many people are choosing to ignore the issues facing our community." My heart sank as I listened to her words. As an immigrant from Mexico living in Brooklyn Heights and a member of the Hispanic American community, I had always taken pride in my neighborhood's diversity and inclusivity. However, this incident was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. As Karen continued to lecture me about racism and its effects on our society, Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward to provide some context. He shared his own experiences growing up as a mixed-race individual in South America and the challenges he faced in trying to bridge cultural divides with his peers from different backgrounds. Dr. Rodriguez's words resonated deeply within me. As I listened intently, I couldn't help but feel grateful for their efforts to create a more inclusive space for all residents. Mayor Thompson's vision of building bridges between people from different backgrounds was echoed by Karen as she pledged to help facilitate conversations about race, racism, and the importance of inclusivity in our community. As we left my pool that day, I couldn't shake off the feeling of hope that Dr. Rodriguez's words would have an impact on not only our local community, but also the wider world. The Brooklyn Heights Park system was no longer just a place for residents to enjoy sunshine and fresh air. It was now a hub for dialogue, education, and collaboration. As we walked through the park, I met several other individuals who shared their experiences with diversity and inclusivity in their own communities. They ranged from elderly immigrants to young professionals of different racial backgrounds and identities. One of them was Maria, an African-American woman who had recently moved to Brooklyn Heights from her native country due to family reasons. "I've been trying my best to make sense of this new community," Maria explained as she pointed out a group of children playing on the swings. "It's overwhelming at first, but I'm grateful for everyone here who is working towards creating a more welcoming environment." Maria's words echoed my own thoughts about how important it was for residents from different backgrounds to come together and learn from each other. As we continued our walk, we came across several community leaders who were actively promoting diversity and inclusivity in their neighborhoods. "Thanks to Dr. Rodriguez and his team," said Maria's neighbor, Mr. Lucian Sato, "we've seen significant progress in creating a more welcoming environment for all residents. The park system is now filled with diverse groups of people from different backgrounds engaging in activities such as yoga classes, sports tournaments, and cultural events." As we walked past the playground where Karen had started her lecture, I couldn't help but feel grateful that our community was taking steps towards creating a more inclusive future for all residents. The park system became not just about physical space. It was now an integral part of our collective journey towards building a society characterized by diversity and social justice. As we continued on our walk back to my pool, I couldn't help but reflect on the impact that Dr. Rodriguez's words had already made in our community. While Karen's initial encounter with me may have sparked some anger and frustration, her words of encouragement and support reminded us all about the importance of working towards creating a more inclusive world. "We need to challenge ourselves to listen better," said Maria as we reached my pool. "We need to learn from each other's experiences and perspectives in order to build meaningful connections with people from different backgrounds." As I swam into my backyard, reflecting on this unforgettable experience, I felt grateful for the opportunities it had given me to engage in conversations about diversity, inclusivity, and social justice. The Brooklyn Heights Park system was no longer just a place where residents could relax or enjoy themselves. It was now an essential part of our community's collective journey towards creating a more equitable and inclusive world. The end. Karen. Dr. Rodriguez. Karen. Maria. Oh. Maria. Karen. Olden helped but notice that Dr. Maria Rodriguez was standing just feet away from them, wearing a flowing white dress and holding a book about diversity and inclusion. Karen's heart swelled with admiration for this accomplished social activist who had dedicated her life to creating a more equitable world through education, advocacy, and community organizing. Dr. Rodriguez approached the poolside couple, addressing each one of them individually before turning towards Karen. "I've noticed that you seem quite passionate about inclusivity in our community," she said with a warm smile. "As someone who has lived in Brooklyn Heights for years, I can tell that it's an area where many different cultures and backgrounds coexist harmoniously." Dr. Rodriguez then paused to consider the impact of her words on Karen and added, "I know firsthand how important this kind of inclusivity is not just for individuals, but also for our entire society." Karen felt a jolt of excitement as she realized that someone from outside their community was speaking up about the issues affecting them. She turned back towards Dr. Rodriguez with gratitude in her heart, feeling grateful to have an advocate who shared her passion and understood its importance. Dr. Rodriguez went on to share some personal experiences and insights into diversity, acknowledging the challenges that people of color often face within society. "We come from different backgrounds, cultures, and histories," she said. "It's not always easy for us to navigate the complexities of our identities when we're surrounded by others who may have vastly different perspectives." Karen listened intently as Dr. Rodriguez spoke about issues such as racism, discrimination, and prejudice. As they continued their conversation, Karen felt a sense of unity among them. Despite their differences in race and ethnicity, each person shared a deep desire for understanding, empathy, and acceptance within the Brooklyn Heights community. It was clear that by working together to promote inclusivity We could not only address these underlying issues, but also create a more equitable society as a whole. Dr. Rodriguez then turned her attention back towards Karen, encouraging her to share some of her own experiences growing up in diverse communities. I remember when I moved from my hometown to Brooklyn Heights, she said, adding that it wasn't easy at first to adjust to the differences between cultures and neighborhoods. She spoke about how navigating the neighborhood's unique architecture, cultural events, and social norms was a daily challenge. I had to learn to adapt quickly to new environments and make friends with people who shared my interests and values, Karen explained. It took time to understand that everyone has their own story and perspective, but by listening to them and learning from each other's experiences, we can create spaces where diversity is celebrated and not feared. Dr. Rodriguez nodded in agreement as she listened intently to Karen's words. She then shared her own experience of overcoming prejudice and discrimination within the Brooklyn Heights community. I remember when I was a college student, she said. A group of white students invited me to participate in their discussion about diversity on campus, but they were dismissive of my experiences as an African American. Karen listened with mixed emotions, feeling torn between wanting to share her own story and being cautious of sharing too much. Dr. Rodriguez encouraged Karen to use the experience as a learning opportunity rather than dwelling on it. She reminded her that racism is not just about individual actions, but also systemic issues within society, such as discrimination in hiring practices or lack of representation at the workplace. We need to challenge ourselves to listen better, Dr. Rodriguez said. By understanding and acknowledging our own biases, we can start working towards building more inclusive communities. Karen nodded again, feeling inspired by Dr. Rodriguez's words. She realized that her story was just one part of a larger conversation about diversity and inclusivity within the Brooklyn Heights community. As she swam back into my backyard, she couldn't help but reflect on the impact that Dr. Rodriguez's words had already made in their lives. The Brooklyn Heights Park system wasn't just about providing recreational activities. It was also an essential part of a larger movement towards creating a more equitable and inclusive society. By acknowledging our differences, learning from one another's experiences, and working together to promote inclusivity, we could not only create spaces where diversity is celebrated, but also build stronger communities that reflect the values of equality and justice for all. As Karen swam into her backyard, she felt grateful for this unforgettable experience and knew that it would shape her future. The Brooklyn Heights Park system had sparked a conversation about diversity, inclusivity, and social justice in their community. Through Dr. Rodriguez's words, they were reminded to challenge themselves, listen better, learn from each other's experiences, and work towards creating a more equitable society as a whole. And so Karen continued swimming into her backyard, reflecting on the impact that this experience had already made within our Brooklyn Heights Park system, while also looking forward to future opportunities for growth, learning, and collaboration in promoting inclusivity and social justice. The end. As Karen continued swimming into her backyard, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The park system in Brooklyn Heights was a symbol not just for its beautiful green spaces and recreational activities, but also for a broader movement towards creating a more inclusive society where everyone felt welcome and valued. It had become an integral part of their community since Dr. Rodriguez's groundbreaking lecture, which emphasized the importance of recognizing our differences, learning from one another's experiences, and working together to promote social justice. Karen remembered her sister-in-law, Sarah, who was the target of Karen's racist insults earlier that day. She couldn't believe how someone could treat a member of their family in such an insensitive manner. But as she looked around at the park system, she realized that everyone was united in their pursuit for inclusivity and social justice. The Brooklyn Heights Park System had created spaces where diverse backgrounds intersected seamlessly, fostering a sense of belonging and empathy among its inhabitants. From small gardens filled with herbs and flowers to large playgrounds designed for all ages, every inch of the park was marked by colorful murals, sculptures, and installations that celebrated diversity and challenged stereotypes. One such mural depicted a family coming together at their local community center, where they had gathered to celebrate cultural heritage through food, music, and dance. The message read, "Unity is strength," which resonated deeply with Karen as she realized the power of unity in creating lasting change. As Karen swam, she thought about Dr. Rodriguez's words and how her actions had inspired a wider community around Brooklyn Heights to embrace diversity and challenge racism. Her sister-in-law, Sarah, who was present at that event, watched from afar as Karen stood up for what was right and sparked a conversation within the park system. The following day, Karen met with Dr. Rodriguez and shared her experience swimming in the backyard of the park system with the group. She explained how it had impacted her life and inspired others to reflect on their own biases and ways of interacting with people from different backgrounds. Dr. Rodriguez listened intently as Karen spoke, nodding along as she nodded back at her sister-in-law's words that equality is not just about treating one person differently, but also creating opportunities for everyone to feel valued, respected, and included. He shared the importance of listening actively, learning from diverse perspectives, and working together towards a more inclusive society. Dr. Rodriguez encouraged Karen to take part in their community events and engage with people who had different backgrounds than her, challenging stereotypes and promoting empathy and understanding. He also suggested that they start by building relationships with local businesses, schools, and organizations that catered to underrepresented communities, such as immigrants, LGBTQ+, or individuals from low-income backgrounds. Karen realized the impact of Dr. Rodriguez's words on their community, not just in Brooklyn Heights, but throughout New York City. As she continued swimming into her backyard, she knew that it was only through collective action and ongoing conversations like those they were having with Dr. Rodriguez that they could truly make a difference in creating a more equitable society. As the sun began to set over Brooklyn Heights Park System, Karen reflected on all she had learned from this experience. She felt grateful for the opportunities that the park system had given her, both as an individual and as part of a larger movement towards social justice. And with Dr. Rodriguez's words ringing in her ears, she knew that she would continue to use their experiences as inspiration for creating positive change within her own community and beyond. As they swam into their backyard once again on the following Saturday, Karen felt empowered by the lessons she had learned during those hours of swimming together. She reflected on how Dr. Rodriguez's words had sparked a conversation in her community, leading to a broader movement towards inclusivity and social justice that would continue to shape her life for years to come. Karen knew that the Brooklyn Heights Park System was just one small part of their larger journey towards creating a more equitable society. But she also understood that it played a critical role in shaping the hearts and minds of those who had grown up there, inspiring them to challenge societal norms and work together to build a better world for all. As Karen swam into her backyard once again on Saturday evening, with Dr. Rodriguez's words echoing through the park system, she felt grateful that they had shared this experience with one another and inspired others to join in their journey towards creating a more inclusive society. And as the sun set over Brooklyn Heights, Karen knew that there was so much work left to be done, but together, they could make a difference. In the end, Karen's story became part of the larger narrative of an ongoing conversation about diversity, inclusivity, and social justice in our community. It demonstrated how small acts like swimming can have profound impacts on individuals and society as a whole, inspiring us all to work towards creating a more equitable world where everyone feels valued, respected, and included. And with each passing day, Karen's story would continue to inspire others to join the fight for social justice, shaping their own experiences and contributing to the larger movement in building a better future for all. Global outline. Asterisk on a scorching Saturday, I was lounging in my pool, my beloved sanctuary, when Karen stumbled upon it. As she walked through the garden and backyard, her steps echoed with racist slurs directed at an African-American neighbor who had dared to park their car on our street. Asterisk in stark contrast, Dr. Rodriguez's words from a recent community meeting resonated in my mind as I watched Karen swim laps in the pool. He told us that swimming can be a powerful tool for social change and encourage people of all backgrounds to embrace diversity and inclusion. Asterisk as Karen swam deeper into her backyard once again on Saturday evening. She felt grateful that we had shared this experience with one another and inspired others to join our journey towards creating a more inclusive society. She remembered the moments when Dr. Rodriguez had spoken about the importance of empathy, understanding, and compassion in addressing issues related to race and inequality. Asterisk as the sun set over Brooklyn Heights, Karen knew that there was so much work left to be done. The community needed to come together as one and address the deeply ingrained racism and discrimination that still exists within our society. She felt a sense of urgency about this issue, knowing how it affected not only individuals, but also the fabric of our neighborhood. Asterisk with Karen's story in mind, I knew that I had an important role to play in shaping its narrative. As she swam through her backyard once again on Saturday evening, I began writing down my thoughts and ideas for a plan to address this injustice. 1. Build awareness. The first step would be to raise awareness about the issue of racism and discrimination within our community by sharing Karen's story with the wider audience. This could involve organizing public events or creating social media posts that highlight the impact of racial prejudice on individuals and communities, as well as highlighting stories like hers. 2. Organize a town hall. I decided to hold a town hall meeting in Brooklyn Heights where local residents would come together to discuss the issue of racism, hear their perspectives on how we can work towards creating a more inclusive society. 3. Collaborate with organizations. Karen's story inspired me to collaborate with local organizations that focus on promoting diversity and inclusion, such as the Brooklyn Heights Community Justice Center and various community-based groups. These organizations could provide resources, support, and guidance in implementing strategies for addressing racism and discrimination within our community. 4. Foster a dialogue. The town hall meeting was not just about raising awareness. It also provided an opportunity to foster open communication and dialogue among the attendees. I organized a panel discussion where experts from various fields would share their experiences with racism, discuss best practices for combating prejudice, and offer recommendations for improving inclusivity within our community. 5. Encourage activism. The town hall meeting was not just about raising awareness. It also served as an opportunity to encourage activism among the attendees. I encouraged them to take action by participating in local campaigns, organizing rallies or protests against racial inequality, and advocating for policy changes that promote diversity and inclusion. As Karen continued swimming through her backyard on Saturday evening, I knew that my plan was gaining traction. The town hall meeting had generated a lot of interest among the community members, and as the sun set over Brooklyn Heights, there were signs of progress being made. Local businesses started to display posters with messages promoting diversity and inclusion in their storefronts. reflecting Karen's story and inspiring others to do the same. Asterisk community-based groups organized events that celebrated cultural heritage and provided opportunities for people from diverse backgrounds to connect, learn about each other, and celebrate our shared history as Brooklyn Heights residents. Asterisk the Brooklyn Heights Police Department launched an educational program called Breaking Barriers, which aimed at teaching children about racial stereotypes and promoting empathy and understanding in their interactions with others. This initiative not only addressed the issue of racism, but also fostered a positive attitude towards diversity among school-age students. Asterisk as Karen continued swimming through her backyard, I knew that we were on track to make significant progress in addressing the issue of racism and discrimination within our community. She had inspired people from all walks of life to take action and work together towards creating a more inclusive society. Asterisk the sun set over Brooklyn Heights as Karen's story came full circle, reminding us of the power of small acts like swimming can have on individuals and communities in addressing complex social issues such as racism and discrimination. With each passing day, her story would continue to inspire others to join the fight for justice, shaping their own experiences and contributing to a larger movement that builds a better future for all. As Karen continued her heated argument with the racist neighbor, I couldn't help but notice how it was affecting the rest of the neighborhood. The Brooklyn Heights Police Department had launched an educational program called Breaking Barriers to combat racial stereotypes and promote empathy and understanding among school-aged students in the community. The initiative aimed at addressing the issue of racism by teaching children about the negative effects of prejudice, discrimination, and microaggressions on individuals and society as a whole. This education not only helped bridge the gap between different races, but also fostered a positive attitude towards diversity, acceptance, and inclusivity among school-ages kids. As Karen swam through her backyard with an open heart, she noticed that many of the other residents were taking notice of her actions and exchanging words of encouragement and support. The Brooklyn Heights Police Department had set up a community hotline where anyone could report incidents of racism or discrimination in their neighborhood, and they received numerous calls from concerned citizens like Karen. One of the neighbors, Mr. Lucian Sato, was particularly vocal about his concerns regarding the impact of racial stereotypes on minority students. He explained that he had grown up with a strong sense of pride for his African American heritage, but also experienced firsthand how racism could lead to discrimination in education and employment opportunities. As an educator himself, Mr. Lucian Sato believed that it was crucial to promote empathy and understanding among children so they can recognize the power dynamics at play. Karen listened intently as Mr. Lucian Sato shared his experiences with racial barriers and prejudice. She felt a deep sense of compassion for him and knew firsthand how important it was to address these issues head-on in order to create a more inclusive community. The sun began setting over Brooklyn Heights, casting a warm glow across the neighborhood. Karen's story took on a new dimension as she reflected on her journey so far and its impact on others. She realized that every small act of kindness and understanding could make a significant difference in addressing complex social issues such as racism and discrimination. As she swam back to the pool, Karen felt grateful for the support she had received from her friends and neighbors. They had encouraged her to take action, provided resources, and reminded her of their shared commitment towards creating a more equitable society. She knew that they were not alone in this fight against prejudice and that together, we could overcome any obstacle. The Brooklyn Heights Police Department continued its educational program, which focused on teaching children about the importance of empathy and understanding while addressing issues such as racism, discrimination, and microaggressions. The department's efforts had reached a wider audience than ever before, with schools across the community participating in workshops, seminars, and community forums. Karen's story became an inspiration to many young people who were inspired by her courage, determination, and dedication towards creating change within their own communities. Her actions not only highlighted the need for education, but also served as a reminder that small acts of kindness could make a significant impact on the world around us. As she swam back into the pool, Karen felt grateful to be part of this collective effort to combat racism and discrimination in Brooklyn Heights. She knew that her story would continue to inspire others, shaping their own experiences and contributing to a larger movement that builds a better future for all. With each passing day, she looked forward to seeing how our community continued to grow stronger and more inclusive under the guidance of Breaking Barriers and other initiatives aimed at promoting empathy and understanding among school-age kids. On a scorching Saturday, I was lounging on the sun-soaked deck of my family's beach house in Brooklyn Heights, enjoying a lazy day under the warm rays. My friends and I had planned to spend the afternoon soaking up the ocean breeze, sipping on refreshing drinks, and watching our favorite movies. As we sat down at the poolside table, Karen approached me with her usual aggressive demeanor. Karen was my little sister, always eager to start a conversation or challenge someone's beliefs. On this particular Saturday, she had come by unannounced, demanding that I take steps towards addressing issues such as racism, discrimination, and microaggressions in our community. As we discussed the topic, Karen argued that these were not isolated incidents, but part of a larger systemic problem facing many marginalized communities around the world. We talked about how schools across Brooklyn Heights had participated in workshops, seminars, and community forums to educate students on the harmful effects of racism and discrimination. Karen's story became an inspiration for many young people who were inspired by her courage, determination, and dedication towards creating change within their own communities. Her actions not only highlighted the need for education, but also served as a reminder that small acts of kindness could make a significant impact on the world around us. As she swam back into the pool, Karen felt grateful to be part of this collective effort to combat racism and discrimination in Brooklyn Heights. She knew that her story would continue to inspire others, shaping their own experiences and contributing to a larger movement that builds a better future for all. Karen's actions were not limited to speaking out against racist language or behaviors, but also included advocating for diversity, inclusivity, and equal rights for everyone, regardless of their race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, socioeconomic, status, or any other characteristic. She encouraged me to listen more closely to the perspectives and experiences of people who identified as marginalized because they too often face discrimination and exclusion in our society. Karen's words resonated with me deeply, reminding me that we all have a role to play in creating a world where everyone feels valued, respected, and included. It was not just about fighting against racism, but also about fostering empathy and understanding among school-age kids by encouraging them to learn about the experiences of others, challenge stereotypes, and embrace differences. As Karen swam back into the pool with her head held high, she couldn't help but reflect on my own actions and attitudes. She encouraged me to be more open-minded, empathetic, and accepting, recognizing that our beliefs and behaviors can impact not just ourselves, but also those around us. I realized that, as a leader in breaking down barriers and promoting social justice, it was essential to embody these values every day. As the sun began to set on Brooklyn Heights, Karen's words echoed through my mind, inspiring me to continue pushing for change and making our community an inclusive, welcoming place for all individuals. With each passing day, She looked forward to seeing how breaking barriers and other initiatives aimed at promoting empathy and understanding among school-ages kids continued to grow stronger and more effective in creating a better future for everyone. In conclusion, on that scorching Saturday, I was sitting by the pool with Karen, discussing the importance of combating racism, discrimination, and microaggressions. As we swam back into the water together, Karen's story became an inspiration not only to me, but also to countless others who were inspired by her courage, determination, and dedication towards creating change within their own communities. Karen's words served as a powerful reminder that small acts of kindness can make a significant impact on our world and shape the future we create for ourselves and those around us. As I continued my journey as an advocate for social justice in Brooklyn Heights, I knew that Karen would continue to be a shining beacon of hope and inspiration, guiding me towards creating a better tomorrow filled with empathy, understanding, and equality for all individuals. On a scorching Saturday, I was enjoying my pool, my earned paradise, when Karen showed up, trespassing, screaming racist insults, and demanding her stepsister swim. She had been stalking the area for weeks, determined to make sure that she would ruin our day before we even made it there. The sun beat down on us as Karen approached the edge of the pool, a determined look etched onto her face.